Right now, I am sitting in my car outside the baby store, staring at the beautifully wrapped gift box on my passenger seat. Inside this innocent-looking package lies something that will change everything at my sister Sophia's baby shower tomorrow. For months, my family has been living a lie, and I have been the only one left in the dark. My parents knew. They chose silence over truth, protecting my sister over their own daughter. But tomorrow, when Sophia opens this special present in front of all her friends and family, the truth will finally come to light. Some gifts are meant to be remembered forever. Before we dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt betrayed by the people you trusted most. And if you think you know what is in that gift box, stick around because what happens at this baby shower will shock you to your core. Trust me, you will want to see how this unfolds. I never thought I would become the kind of person who plans revenge. My name is Rosa, and I am 28 years old. I have always been the responsible older sister, the one who cleaned up messes and protected everyone else's feelings. Growing up, my little sister Sophia was the golden child 3 years younger and blessed with everything that came naturally to her. While I worked 2 jobs to pay for college, my parents Patricia and Robert handed Sophia a full ride through life. I told myself it did not matter because I loved her more than my own reflection. When I met Jake at a coffee shop downtown 4 years ago, I thought I had finally found someone who put me first. He was 30 years old, worked in marketing, and had this way of making me laugh until my stomach hurt. We dated for a year before he proposed on Christmas morning in front of my entire family. Sophia squealed with excitement and helped me plan every detail of our wedding. She was my maid of honor, standing beside me in a lavender dress as I promised to love Jake forever. For 3 years, Jake and I built what I thought was a solid marriage. We bought a small house in the suburbs with a white picket fence and started trying for children. Month after month, the pregnancy test came back negative, but Jake would hold me while I cried and promise we would keep trying. Meanwhile, Sophia met Marcus at a charity event last year. He was 29, worked in finance, and within 6 months, they were engaged. Their wedding was a fairy tale affair that my parents spent $30,000 organizing. But somewhere around our 3rd wedding anniversary, I started noticing changes in Jake. He would come home from work later than usual, claiming he had extra projects or mandatory overtime. His phone, which used to sit casually on the kitchen counter, suddenly required a passcode and stayed glued to his side. When I asked about his day, his answers became vague and hurried. He started working out more frequently, buying new clothes, and taking longer showers when he got home. I tried to push these observations away, telling myself that married couples go through phases. Maybe he was stressed about work or worried about our struggles with getting pregnant. I focused on being a better wife, cooking his favorite meals, and planning romantic date nights. But the distance between us kept growing like a crack in a foundation. Sophia's behavior changed too, though more subtly. She stopped calling me every day like she used to, and when we did talk, our conversations felt forced and awkward. During family dinners at my parents' house, she would avoid sitting near Jake and me. If Jake told a story, she would suddenly find her phone fascinating. If I mentioned something funny Jake had said, she would change the subject immediately. The first real warning sign came during my mother's 52nd birthday party 3 months ago. My parents had invited both families to celebrate at their house, and Patricia had cooked enough food to feed a small army. Jake disappeared for nearly 30 minutes, claiming he was taking a work call outside. When I went to find him, Sophia was also nowhere to be found. I discovered them both returning from different directions, Jake from the backyard and Sophia from the bathroom, but something about their timing felt wrong. I started paying closer attention after that night. I began noticing that Jake's late nights at work coincidentally happened on the same evenings Sophia claimed to be at book club or yoga class. When I mentioned visiting Sophia unexpectedly one evening, Jake suddenly remembered he had promised to help his brother move furniture. These coincidences started forming a pattern that made my stomach turn with dread. The breaking point came 6 weeks ago, when Jake left his phone charging in the kitchen while he took a shower. I had never looked through his messages before, but something compelled me to pick it up. Most of his texts were work-related or conversations with his buddies about football. But there was one thread with a contact labeled simply as S that made my hands shake. The messages were deleted, but I could see the timestamp showed they had been texting as recently as 20 minutes before he got home. When I confronted Jake about the mysterious S contact that evening, he laughed and said it was his coworker Steve from the accounting department. But I knew all of Jake's coworkers from company parties, and Steve's last name was Thompson, not just S. Jake's explanation felt rehearsed and hollow, like he had been preparing for this conversation. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Jake slept peacefully beside me, wondering if I was losing my mind or finally seeing clearly. I decided to trust my instincts and started documenting Jake's schedule. I wrote down every time he claimed to be working late, every unexplained absence, every moment when his story did not quite add up. The pattern became undeniable. Jake was lying to me consistently, and somehow my sister seemed to be disappearing at all the same times. The sister who used to tell me everything, who used to call me crying about every argument with Marcus, had become a stranger who could barely look me in the eye. The day I decided to follow Jake changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning, and he kissed me goodbye like usual, saying he would be late because of a client presentation that could run past 8 o'clock. Something about the way he avoided my eyes when he said it made me call in sick to my own job. I waited 15 minutes after he left, then drove to his office building downtown. I parked across the street and waited for 3 hours, watching employees come and go through the glass revolving doors. Jake never went inside. At 2:30 in the afternoon, I saw his red Toyota Camry pull into the parking lot of the Hampton Inn, 6 blocks away from his office. My heart hammered against my ribs as I drove closer and found a spot where I could see the hotel entrance clearly. For 45 minutes, I sat in my car with the radio turned down low, gripping my steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I kept telling myself there had to be an innocent explanation. Maybe he was meeting a client there. Maybe it was a work lunch that ran long. Maybe I was becoming a paranoid wife who needed therapy more than answers. Then I saw her. Sophia walked through the hotel lobby wearing a red dress I'd helped her pick out for date nights with Marcus. Her long blonde hair was styled in loose curls, and she carried the black purse I had given her for her birthday. She moved with purpose, not like someone who was lost or confused about being there. She knew exactly where she was going. 20 minutes later, Jake appeared in the lobby. He looked around carefully before approaching the front desk, and I watched him accept a key card from the clerk. My sister and my husband were staying in the same hotel, separately checking in on a Tuesday afternoon when they had both lied about where they would be. I sat in that parking lot for 2 hours, crying so hard I could barely see. Cars pulled in and out around me while I tried to process what I had witnessed. This was not some chance encounter or innocent coincidence. This was planned, deliberate, and had probably been happening for months while I made excuses for both of them. When I finally drove home, Jake was already there, sitting on our couch watching television like nothing had happened. He smiled when I walked in and asked how my day was, if I was feeling better from my supposed illness. I stared at his face, searching for any trace of guilt or shame, but he looked completely relaxed. He had become an expert at lying to me. That night, I waited until Jake fell asleep, then crept into our home office and started searching through our credit card statements and phone records. What I found made me physically sick. Charges for flowers that I had never received, restaurant bills from places we had never been together, and hotel stays during weekends when Jake claimed to be visiting his brother in Portland. I also discovered that our joint savings account, which should have had $12,000, was down to $3,000. Jake had been making cash withdrawals for months, small amounts that would not catch my attention individually, but added up to thousands of dollars. Money we had been saving to start our family was being spent on his affair with my sister. The next morning, I decided I could not pretend anymore. When Jake got home from what he claimed was a normal day at work, I was waiting at our kitchen table with printed copies of hotel receipts and bank statements spread out in front of me. I told him I knew about the Hampton Inn, about the money, about everything. Jake's face went through several expressions in the span of 10 seconds. Surprise, panic, anger, and finally resignation. He sat down across from me and put his head in his hands. For a moment, I thought he might deny everything or try to gaslight me into believing I was imagining things. Instead, he looked up and said the words that destroyed my world completely. "Rosa, I am so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Sophia and we tried to fight it, but we fell in love. We have been together for 8 months now. We want to be together properly without all the lying and sneaking around. I want a divorce. 8 months. They had been betraying me for 8 months while I planned family dinners and bought Christmas presents for both of them. While I struggled with infertility and blamed myself for not being able to give Jake children, he was creating new memories and intimacy with my own sister. Every family gathering, every holiday, every moment when the three of us had been in the same room, I had been the only one who did not know the truth. I asked Jake if anyone else knew about their relationship, and his silence told me everything. I asked him directly if my parents knew, and he finally nodded. Patricia and Robert had discovered the affair 2 months earlier when they saw Sophia and Jake together at a restaurant across town. Instead of telling me immediately, they had confronted Sophia privately and demanded she end things. When she refused, they decided to stay silent rather than destroy both their daughters' marriages. My entire family had been protecting everyone except me. They had made me the fool, the clueless wife who kept planning family activities while everyone else knew my marriage was a sham. I had been living in a carefully constructed lie for months, and every single person I trusted most had been part of maintaining that deception. That night, I packed 2 suitcases and drove to my best friend Madison's apartment downtown. I could not bear to stay in the house Jake and I had bought together, knowing he had been planning his exit strategy for months, while I had been planning our future. Madison held me while I cried until I had no tears left, and she promised I could stay as long as I needed to figure out my next steps. Living with Madison for the next 2 months gave me space to think clearly for the first time in almost a year. She worked as a paralegal downtown and helped me find a good divorce lawyer who could protect what little assets I had left. Jake had already moved most of his belongings out of our house and was apparently staying with Sophia in her apartment while Marcus was traveling for business. The divorce proceedings revealed just how thoroughly Jake had been planning his departure. He had been secretly moving money into accounts I could not access and had even consulted with his own lawyer months before I discovered the affair. Our house, which we had bought together, would have to be sold because neither of us could afford the mortgage payments alone. After splitting the proceeds and paying legal fees, I would walk away with barely enough money to put a deposit on a small apartment. But the financial devastation was nothing compared to what happened when Sophia called me 6 weeks after I had moved out. She was crying on the phone saying she needed to tell me something important before I heard it from someone else. Through her tears, she admitted that she was 3 months pregnant. The timing meant the baby had been conceived right around the time I first started noticing changes in Jake's behavior. I hung up on her without saying a word and immediately called my mother. Patricia answered on the first ring, which told me she had been expecting this conversation. When I asked if she knew about Sophia's pregnancy, she admitted that Sophia had told her and Robert the week before. Once again, I was the last person in the family to learn something that directly affected my life. "Rosa, sweetie, I know this is hard," Patricia said in the gentle voice she used when she was about to ask me to sacrifice something for Sophia's benefit. "But this baby is innocent in all of this. Sophia is scared and needs our support right now. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive her eventually. She really does love Jake, and they want to make this work." The conversation confirmed what I had suspected for months. My parents had chosen sides, and it was not mine. They were more concerned about their unborn grandchild and Sophia's happiness than they were about their older daughter who had been betrayed and humiliated. I was expected to quietly disappear from the family drama so that everyone else could move forward without the inconvenience of dealing with my pain. Over the following weeks, I slowly started rebuilding my life from scratch. I found a job at a marketing firm across town, working with people who knew nothing about my personal disaster. Madison helped me find a small 1-bedroom apartment within my budget, and I spent weekends at thrift stores, finding furniture to fill the empty rooms. For the first time in my adult life, every decision was entirely my own. But underneath the practical work of rebuilding, I was planning something else. The idea started small, just a fantasy of confronting my family publicly and making them face the consequences of their choices. But as weeks passed and I received wedding invitations to Jake and Sophia's rushed ceremony and baby shower invitations for their upcoming celebration, the fantasy became a concrete plan. I hired a private investigator to help me gather evidence of the affair. He was able to retrieve deleted text messages from Jake's phone records and obtain security camera footage from the Hampton Inn that clearly showed both Jake and Sophia entering and leaving the hotel together multiple times. I also had photographs I had taken myself during my surveillance bank records showing the money Jake had spent on their relationship and a timeline that proved their affair had been ongoing for much longer than either of them had admitted. 3 weeks before the baby shower, I received a phone call from Patricia. She told me that Sophia had specifically asked for me to be invited to her baby shower because she wanted to start healing our family. Patricia said it would mean the world to Sophia if I could attend, bring a gift, and begin the process of rebuilding our relationship for the sake of the baby. I agreed immediately, which seemed to surprise my mother. She had probably expected me to refuse or make demands before agreeing to come. Instead, I told her I would be honored to attend and that I was already working on a very special gift for Sophia and the baby. Something personal and memorable that I knew she would treasure forever. The night before the baby shower, I sat in my apartment putting the finishing touches on my presentation. I had created a digital slideshow that told the complete story of Jake and Sophia's relationship from the first hotel receipts I had found to security camera footage of them together. The slideshow was set to music and included a timeline showing exactly how their lives had evolved over the 8-month period of their affair. I had also purchased a small portable projector that could connect to any laptop or phone. The projector was small enough to fit inside a decorative gift box, along with a USB drive containing the slideshow and a heartfelt letter I'd written to my sister. The letter explained how much her betrayal had cost me and how disappointed I was in the entire family for choosing to protect her instead of supporting me through the worst period of my life. As I wrapped the gift box in pink paper with white ribbons, I felt calmer than I had in months. Tomorrow, everyone who had participated in lying to me would have to face the truth in front of all their friends and family members. Sophia would finally understand that actions have consequences, and my parents would have to explain to their social circle how they had failed one daughter to protect another. I called Madison to let her know I would be out of town for the weekend visiting family for a baby shower. She wished me luck and reminded me that I was stronger than I knew. Looking at myself in the bathroom mirror, I realized she was right. The broken, crying woman who had discovered her husband's affair was gone. In her place was someone who refused to be quietly erased from her own story. The baby shower was held at Patricia and Robert's house on a sunny Saturday afternoon in early October. My mother had decorated the entire backyard with pink and white balloons, streamers hanging from the oak trees, and long tables covered in lace tablecloths. The theme was Little Princess, and every detail had been carefully coordinated to create the perfect celebration for Sophia's first child. I arrived exactly on time, carrying my beautifully wrapped gift and wearing a navy blue dress that made me feel confident and composed. Sophia was already surrounded by guests sitting in a white wicker chair decorated with pink roses. Her pregnancy was clearly visible now at 6 months, and she was glowing in a way that made all the female guests comment on how beautiful she looked. Jake was there too, standing awkwardly near the refreshment table and avoiding eye contact with me completely. He looked uncomfortable in his pressed khakis and button-down shirt like he was attending a funeral instead of celebrating his upcoming fatherhood. When I walked into the backyard, I saw him whisper something to Sophia and gesture toward the house, probably asking if he could leave early. My parents greeted me with forced enthusiasm, both of them hugging me a little too tightly and speaking a little too loudly about how wonderful it was to see me. Patricia kept touching my arm and asking if I needed anything, while Robert made awkward jokes about the weather and the football game he was missing. They were both trying too hard to act normal, which told me they were nervous about having me there. The guest list included about 30 people. Sophia's friends from college, neighbors from my parents' street, a few family friends, and several relatives from both sides of our family. Most of these people knew nothing about the circumstances of Sophia's relationship with Jake or the destruction of my marriage. To them, this was simply a happy celebration of an upcoming birth. For the first hour, I played my part perfectly. I complimented Sophia on her dress, admired the decorations my mother had arranged, and made polite conversation with relatives I had not seen in months. Several people asked me how I was doing, and I gave vague answers about staying busy with work and enjoying my independence. Nobody pressed for details about my divorce, which told me Patricia had already spread some version of the story that painted me in a favorable light. Sophia seemed nervous around me, but was trying to act like nothing had changed between us. She thanked me for coming and said how much it meant to her that I was there to celebrate this important day. She kept touching her belly and talking about how excited she was to become a mother, how Jake was going to be such a wonderful father, and how blessed she felt to have such a supportive family. The gift opening ceremony was scheduled for 2 o'clock after everyone had eaten lunch and socialized for a while. Patricia had arranged all the presents on a long table near Sophia's chair, and the gifts ranged from practical baby clothes and equipment to elaborate decorative items for the nursery. My gift box sat among the others, looking innocent and festive with its pink wrapping paper and white satin bow. As guests gathered around to watch Sophia open her presents, I positioned myself near the back of the group, where I had a clear view of everyone's faces. Madison had lent me her laptop, which I had discreetly placed on a small side table near the electrical outlet. The portable projector was hidden in my purse, ready to be connected quickly when the moment was right. Sophia started with the smaller gifts, first opening packages of baby clothes, blankets, and toys, while guests took pictures and made appreciative comments. She was clearly enjoying being the center of attention, holding up each item for everyone to see and reading the gift cards aloud. Patricia was taking notes about who had given what so that Sophia could write thank you cards later. After about 20 minutes, Sophia reached for my gift box. She looked directly at me and smiled as she untied the white ribbon and carefully removed the pink wrapping paper. When she opened the box and saw the small projector inside, her expression changed from confusion to recognition to absolute terror in the span of 3 seconds. "Rosa," she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the conversations happening around us. "What is this?" I stood up and moved toward the laptop on the side table. "It is a very special gift, Sophia. Something that tells the story of how you and Jake fell in love. I thought everyone here would enjoy seeing the timeline of your beautiful romance." The color drained from Sophia's face as I connected the projector to the laptop and pointed it toward the white garage door that would serve as our screen. Jake had noticed what was happening and was moving toward me, but he was on the opposite side of the yard and would not reach me in time to stop what was about to happen. "Everyone, could I have your attention, please?" I announced in a clear, steady voice that carried across the entire backyard. "Sophia has asked me to share a special presentation about her love story with Jake. This is a timeline of their relationship starting from the very beginning, 8 months ago." I clicked play on the slideshow and the first image appeared on the garage door. It was a bank statement showing the first suspicious withdrawal from Jake's account, followed by a photo of the Hampton Inn where I had first discovered their secret meetings. The background music was a romantic ballad that Patricia had played at Sophia and Marcus's wedding just 1 year earlier. The backyard fell completely silent as guests realized what they were watching. The slideshow continued with security camera footage of Jake and Sophia entering the hotel together, screenshots of their deleted text messages talking about when they could next meet privately, and credit card receipts from expensive restaurants where they had celebrated their hidden relationship. Patricia screamed and tried to rush toward the laptop to stop the presentation, but she tripped over a chair and fell to her knees on the grass. Robert was standing frozen in place, his mouth hanging open as he stared at the images of his daughter's affair projected for everyone to see. Several guests had started whispering to each other, and I heard someone say, "Wait, is not that Rosa's husband?" Sophia was crying now, her hands covering her face as the slideshow displayed a calendar showing how their affair had coincided with my struggles with infertility and my efforts to save my marriage. The presentation included audio recordings of voicemails Jake had left for Sophia during weekends when he had told me he was visiting his brother, telling her how much he missed her and counting down the days until they could be together again. The final slide was a photo of the pregnancy test Sophia had sent to Jake via text message with a timestamp showing it was taken just 2 days after I had caught them at the hotel. Below the image was text that read, "Congratulations on your beautiful love story. Some fairy tales begin with destroying someone else's dreams." As the music faded and the presentation ended, the silence in the backyard was deafening. Sophia was sobbing uncontrollably, Jake had disappeared completely, and most of the guests were staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to admiration. Patricia was still on her knees in the grass crying almost as hard as Sophia, while Robert stood helplessly beside her. I calmly disconnected the projector from the laptop and packed both items back into my purse. Then I walked over to where Sophia sat surrounded by opened baby gifts and crouched down so I was at eye level with her chair. "Sophia," I said quietly, so only she could hear me over her crying. "I hope you understand now that the truth always comes out eventually. I hope your baby grows up to be honest and loyal, nothing like either of its parents. And I hope you remember this day every time you look at the photos from your baby shower." I stood up, walked past all the silent guests, and let myself out through the side gate of my parents' backyard. As I got into my car, I could hear Patricia screaming at someone inside the house, but I did not look back to see what was happening. I had said everything I needed to say, and my family could deal with the consequences of their choices without me. The aftermath of the baby shower unfolded exactly as I had hoped it would. Within hours, news of what had happened spread through my parents' social circle and extended family network. Several relatives called me that evening to express their support and tell me how proud they were of me for standing up for myself. My Aunt Linda, Patricia's own sister, told me that what Sophia and Jake had done was unforgivable and that my parents should have protected me instead of enabling the affair. Sophia went into premature labor 2 weeks after the baby shower, delivering a healthy daughter she named Emma. Jake was listed as the father on the birth certificate, but their relationship did not survive the public humiliation of their exposed affair. Within 3 months of Emma's birth, they had broken up, and Jake had moved back in with his parents across town. Sophia became a single mother, still living at home with Patricia and Robert. Marcus, who had been traveling internationally during most of the affair, filed for divorce as soon as he learned the truth about what had happened while he was away. Unlike my own divorce, his was swift and decisive. Marcus kept most of their shared assets and refused to pay any alimony, leaving Sophia financially dependent on our parents for the first time in her adult life. My parents attempted to contact me several times during the months following the baby shower. Patricia left voicemails apologizing for how they had handled the situation and begging me to consider reconciling with the family for Emma's sake. Robert wrote me a letter explaining that they had been trying to protect everyone and had made mistakes in judgment. Both of them insisted that family was more important than holding grudges and that I was hurting myself by refusing to forgive and move forward. I never responded to their attempts at communication. I had learned that forgiveness is something that must be earned, not demanded, and none of them had done the work necessary to deserve my trust again. They had made their choice when they decided to protect Sophia's affair instead of supporting me through the destruction of my marriage. Living with the consequences of that choice was their responsibility, not mine. Instead of focusing on my broken family relationships, I invested all my energy into building the life I wanted for myself. I was promoted twice at my marketing job and eventually saved enough money to buy a small condo downtown. I started taking evening classes toward a master's degree in business administration and joined a hiking club where I met people who shared my interests in outdoor activities and travel. The healing process was not linear or easy. Some days I felt strong and confident about my independence, while other days I grieved the loss of the family relationships I had thought would last forever. I started seeing a therapist who helped me understand that choosing to protect myself was not the same thing as choosing to be bitter or resentful. Learning to set boundaries and demand respect was actually a form of self-love, not selfishness. 2 years after the baby shower, I ran into Jake at a grocery store across town. He looked tired and older, and when he saw me, he immediately started apologizing and explaining how sorry he was for everything that had happened. He told me that losing me was the biggest mistake of his life and that his relationship with Sophia had been a temporary madness that he regretted every day. I listened to him talk for a few minutes, then told him that I appreciated his apology, but that it did not change anything for me. I had moved on completely and built a life that made me happy. His regret was something he would have to live with, but it was no longer my problem to solve or my burden to carry. As I walked away from that conversation, I realized that I felt nothing toward him except mild pity. The love I had once felt for Jake, the anger I had carried about his betrayal, and the hurt I had experienced from his deception had all faded into indifference. He had become a stranger whose choices no longer had any power over my emotions or my future. This experience taught me that family is not always the people you share DNA with. Sometimes the family you choose, the people who show up for you during your worst moments and celebrate your strength, matters more than the family you were born into. Madison became more of a sister to me than Sophia had ever been, and the friends I met through work and hobbies became my chosen family. I also learned that revenge, when it serves justice rather than cruelty, can be a form of healing. I had not exposed Sophia and Jake's affair to hurt them for the sake of hurting them. I had done it to reclaim my own story, to refuse to be erased or silently pushed aside, and to ensure that the truth was told by the person who had been most hurt by their lies. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing alone. And sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you were born into. The truth might be painful when it first comes to light, but living in that truth is always better than living in a beautiful lie. What would you have done if you discovered your sister was having an affair with your husband and your parents knew but chose to protect her instead of you? Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace in your family and standing up for yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to like this video if you believe that the truth should always come to light, no matter how painful it might be. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the most difficult moments, and share this with someone who needs to hear that they deserve loyalty and respect from the people they love. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you are stronger than you know. Until next time, keep choosing truth over comfort and authenticity over approval.